Hey, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Got another oldie for you. Something I just watched in the last week. Thought would maybe be worth a quick look. It is a film from 1937. Presented to us by Adolph Zukor, starring Jean Arthur and Edward Arnold. It is called Easy Living. Also with Ray Milland, Louis Alberne, Mary Nash, and a few others, which we'll get to in just a moment. So, what is this film? Paramount film. It is a screwball comedy, and it's a really good screwball comedy. It's one that I was not aware of. So, I don't know that you would call it a forgotten film, but it's maybe, a less known film. But I think well worth a watch. So let's go through, and it'll probably be a little bit spoilery just because of the nature of the film. A screwball comedy is all based on kind of crazy coincidences and this and that and the other. It's sort of hard to cover it without covering some of those coincidences. But I'll do my best not to ruin it, and I'll throw up the little spoiler sign when things are getting particularly spoilery. So, screenplay is by Preston Sturges, a well-known screenwriter. And interesting, he's a screenwriter who managed to transition into directing films, including his own films. Not an easy thing to do back in the 40s. He pulled it off. Got a few Oscar nominations for The Miracle of Morgan's Creek and Hail the Conquering Hero, both in 44. Also wrote and directed The Lady Eve, Sullivan's Travels in 41, Palm Beach Story in 42. And I think I've seen Sullivan's Travels. I'm pretty sure I've seen it. I need to check my movie list. I don't think I've seen any of the other ones. And I need to. I certainly enjoyed this one that he did. But funny writer, good guy. Okay. Directed by Mitchell Leeson. Or Leeson. He was a former costumer. And apparently on this film, he handled Jean Arthur's hair and costume personally, because he had a theory that if the leading lady feels comfortable and happy with what she's wearing and all that good stuff, she's going to do a better job on the film. And apparently it worked. She was known to be kind of hard to work with. She was very shy, and I don't know, neurotic would be the word for it. Probably not exactly. But anyways, very easygoing on this film. So it apparently did work. All right. So what is this movie about in general? It's about the rich and the working class. A lot of movies like that in the 1930s. We're still in the Depression at this point. And this is really more of a comedy, little romance in it, than it is like a message picture. I don't know if anybody's picking the squeaking of my chair up. See if I can. No, it's not working. Anyways. So this is really a movie for laughs. It's not trying to make any broad social points or accusations. There's a couple that characters make, but it's kind of more laughed off than it is anything else. But this is a pretty common trope in this time period, kind of comparing the lives of the very wealthy against the working class and yada, yada. So we start in the home of J.B. Ball, John B. Ball Sr., also called the Bull of Broadway. Obviously, they're going for something like the Wolf of Wall Street there. He is a banker, and he is one of those guys that is just, he's a decent guy at heart, but he is a lot of bluster. He's a lot of yelling. He's a lot of, I've had enough of this. But you do get some nice points through the film of saying that he is a decent guy. He's played by Edward Arnold in this. who you've seen a lot of movies from this time period. And we start off with him grousing about something as he walks out of his bedroom, and then he promptly falls down the stairs. Again, a nice way to open a film because it's letting you know exactly what it's all about from the get-go. You're going to have physical comedy in this thing. And again, he's not injured falling down the stairs. So we're kind of like in Three Stooges territory here, although it's not quite as zany as Three Stooges. There's not as much physical comedy as Stooges, but it's that sort of thing. It's a little bit of a cartoon that is brought to life. His butler, played by, let me make sure I get that. Yeah, Robert Grieg, who, if you're into old movies, you will recognize as the butler in Animal Crackers, Marx Brothers. And you'll see him in a few things. And he was sort of part of this stock company that Preston Sturges worked with. He had a few actors that he liked to use in character roles in his pictures. So the next major character that we're going to meet at breakfast is John Ball Jr., played by Ray Milland. Now, this is where it sort of parts with some movies from this period, because at this point, it would often be a matter of this sort of useless son. It's a theme you get in a few. A self-made man who's become wealthy has a wife and kids who have never really worked. And maybe the wife had to be like a housewife back in the day, but they're kind of on permanent vacation and they like it that way. And they're sort of very bougie, trying to, be with the upper classes, and they've changed the way they talk and blah, blah, blah. Whereas dad is still sort of deep down a working class guy who's struck it rich and hasn't usually given into that kind of behavior yet. But you don't get that here, really. There's going to be a matter of money that is owed because of something Junior here did, but and Dad's PO'd about it. But Junior's like, well, you know what? I want to go out and get my own job and make my own way. I don't want to just be this spoiled banker's son. And his father's, well, I was a banker's son. What's wrong with a banker's son? There's a good line in here too about, him calling his son stupid. And he's offended. He's like, it's okay. I was stupid too until I was about 27. Then the fat fell off my brain and I got to work. It's a great line because it's kind of true. I used to say that to my daughter when she was younger. I'm like, hey, kids are dumb. I go, I was a kid too. I was dumb as well. We're all dumb when we're kids. It takes a while for us to figure things out. It's okay to make mistakes. We're all learning at that point. But, you kind of like Junior because he's not a spoiled kid who just wants dad to do things for him. He's, but he's independent. He's clashing with his father a little bit. And you see where he's telling dad off and he's going to go off on his own. And so exit John Ball Jr. for a while. And then he gets another bill. Sable coat. $58,000. Now, I hit the CPI calculator. It's imperfect, but it gives you an idea, money-wise, of what $58,000 in 1937 would be in 2024. And the answer is $1.25 million. And that's where you go, okay, well, CPI calculators are not perfect. But it does give you an idea that what we are talking about here is an extremely expensive coat that his wife has bought. And that sets him off. And so he storms upstairs, and his wife is really handling him. She's pretty darn good at this, played by Mary Nash. And, he's throwing a fit. And she's kind of like, whatever, I'll do whatever I want. Now, again, in some of these kind of movies, there'd be more of a point that he's a neglectful husband or whatever. There's maybe a little bit of her trying to get his attention in the wrong way. But you're going to find through the movie a genuine affection between these two, especially towards the end. But he's looking at her closet full of furs, like just throwing a fit. He ends up on the floor again. and then ends up crashing through a door. And well, okay, basically you get the idea that John Ball Sr. is going through a rough morning. So, wife is running off with the coat. He's chasing her. End up on the roof of this Park Avenue mansion. He kind of corners her, gets a hold of the coat, and he throws it off the roof. Here's where the film really starts to come in, because it lands on the head of one Mary Smith. I love the fact that they named her Mary Smith. It's almost like John Smith. It's John Doe. This is an everyday, normal person. They didn't want to set her apart. They want you to know this is just a regular person like you. And she's kind of annoyed because this hat landing on her, which she's sure must be a fake, this coat that landed on her, which she's sure is a fake, has messed up her hat. You see the feather is sort of bent there. So she gets off this bus. It was one of those double-decker kind of deals. And she's going to a house like, did you lose this coat or what happened? No. Meanwhile, he's left the house. He's having an argument with his chef. And he ends up running into Mary Smith and sees the coat. He says, hey, that's my coat. And she's like, well, how do I know it's your coat? Well, he tells her the label and all this stuff. And he says, you know what? Why don't you keep it? Now, I think this tells you something about this guy. If he's just cheap, and apparently he couldn't take the coat back and get his money back anyways, okay. But he's just willing to give this $1.2 million coat to a person on the street. Tells you something about this guy. This is not a bad guy. He's not a greedy guy. He's not avaricious, you know. He's got a certain generosity to him, and he likes the fact that the way she talks to him, I think, too. You know, he respects her right off the bat. Of course, Mary Smith is played by Jean Arthur, and her and Edward Arnold have some good moments here early in the film. They play off each other rather well. He says, let me give you a ride to work, because she's running late now. Gets in there, and they're getting in this discussion and, you know, getting this argument over math, and it's driving him nuts. He's he's that kind of a character who can get real angry. I mean, think of him as sort of like, I don't know, Mr. Spacely or Dagwood's boss, you know, but he's definitely a little kinder. It's like, he's what you would call back in the day a regular fella, right? Okay, he's rich, but he's not like completely out of touch with reality. He seems like a decent dude overall. So he says, I'm going to take you to get a new hat. Oh, the plot now thickens. That chair is making squeaky noises. Hold on a second. I got to adjust here. All right. Because it's driving me nuts. Even if the mic's not picking it up, it's driving me up a wall. So, goes to get her a new hat. And they're going through and this and that and the other. And I think the people at this hat shop, it's run by a guy named Van Buren, played by Franklin Panghorn, another regular for Sturgis Films. He kind of spots the coat, and here's this guy, and he knows who this guy is. He's J.B. Ball. He's the bull of Broad Street. He got this young, attractive woman with him. She's wearing a fur coat. He's buying her a hat early in the morning. Oh, he goes, that must be his mistress. Okay, and gossipy Van Buren is going to set this movie even more so into motion. He thinks he has a very valuable secret here. So Mary gets to work. They spot the sable coat, and they're like, how did she afford this? And she's going, it's not sable. I'm trying to think what she called it. Oh, it's something like a Kaminsky or something, which is the designer of the coat. She didn't get it. She's like, of course it's not an expensive coat. This guy wouldn't give this to me if it was an expensive coat, you know. And they decide, well, she works for this boys magazine. It's very, you know, we can't have any impropriety. And so they fire her. She's out of a job all of a sudden. In the meantime, Ball has a visit from Mr. Louis. Yes, that's right, Mr. Louis. If you wondered who the Kingsmen were singing about back in the day, this is the guy. He's played by Luis Alberne. Plays it good. It's sort of the dialect thing. There's a lot of malapropisms, but they work. It's funny. He owns a hotel, and it is a flop. He supposedly is like a great chef. It's a flop. He's not going to be able to pay money back. He's way late on his mortgage anyways. And Ball's like, look, pay up or I take the hotel. I'm sorry, Well, can't I have another week? He says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a day. Because he knows he's not going to raise this money in a day or a week or whatever else, and he's tired of it. And so Louis is not real happy with this guy, but obviously you don't, hey, Ball's a regular fella, but at the same time, he's a banker and you made an agreement and this is it. Well, it so happens that Louis runs into Van Buren. And Van Buren tells him the news. Apparently, Ball has a mistress by the name of Mary Smith. And I believe, Van Buren has her address because her old hat was being sent back to her apartment, which, by the way, she's about to lose because she can't pay the rent. And she doesn't have a job now. And so Louis looks her up and says, hey, I'll give you a room in my hotel, right? Oh, maybe this will get me in good with the banker. Whatever. He's got a plan. He's going to give her this room in the hotel. And she's not in a position to refuse, so she goes along with it. All right. Plot's getting thicker. And although she has this wonderful room in the hotel, the cupboards are bare because Louis doesn't have any money either. In fact, he says, look, I'll give you the room for like a week or something for like, what was it? Like, I think he was going to pay her some money and give her like 3 eggs a day. And that was, I think, the deal, something like that. But anyways, the cupboards are bare. She's hungry. She heads to the automat. Now, for all the kids in the audience and adults who don't really know what an automat is, got this big cafeteria and you got all these little cubbies with a glass hinged door on the front of them. And you put a coin in the slot and you open it. You pull out a kind of food, whatever food happens to be in there. Obviously glass, you can see what it is. Could be pie, could be roast beef, could be whatever. And you go through and click, and you get all the food that you want to have, and then you eat it. So behind there is where the kitchens are, and there are people who are putting the food in the slots, keeping them full. That's an automat. I believe you get that a line in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. A kiss on the hand, maybe. Or, you get automat in that line. Automats were pretty a normal thing. Even through the 50s, you get a good automat scene in That Touch of Mink. Friggin' great movie, by the way. So working at the automat is John Ball Jr. because he's really not qualified to do anything else. And he takes an immediate shine to this woman, Mary, who has very, very little money. And he's like, hey, you go over, pretend to put a coin in the slot. I'll open it from behind. You get some more. She goes ahead with it. Doesn't like the idea, but she goes ahead with it. And he's caught doing this by the house detective, the security guy there. They get into this big knockdown, drag out fight behind the scenes and accidentally hit these levers, opens up all of the cubbies at once. And the coffee and the ice cream is all flowing out of these nozzles. So we get a good physical comedy routine here. This riot in the automat is all these people. Cause remember, it's the Depression. So free food, you don't overlook free food. They're all rushing to get food out of these things. People tripping over each other, getting into fights, getting into arguments. It's very funny. So John is now officially fired. Mary's lost her job and they found each other. And so she says, well, why don't you come back to this giant hotel suite that she has? It's multiple rooms. You can stay there. Now, of course, she doesn't know he's got a house to go home to, his father's, but he doesn't really want to do it. He's sort of trying to hide his own financial problems from her. It's a nice scene, and they play it really well. I'm sometimes hot and cold on Ray Milland and Jean Arthur. They're both excellent in this film. I really enjoyed them. So they're going and checking out this crazy thing. There's another funny scene in this mega fancy shower bathtub bit where, you know, everything goes off all at once and they're trying to get out of the thing. Their clothes are drenched. So now I'll put up the spoilers thing, because I think we've set the scene pretty good at this point. So Van Buren shows up with hats that she might want. Why is he doing this? Well, there are going to be more vendors who do this, right? Because she's the mistress of super rich J.B. Ball. And obviously you sell her stuff, you can bill it to him, right? Or you give her stuff, gets you in good. Okay. This is the rumor that's now floating around. And Louie, though, he wants a little bit of revenge. And so he hooks up with Wallace Whistling, who is a gossip columnist, played by William Demarest. And he says, here's what's going on. And Demarest is like, you're probably full of crap. It's not happening. Well, there's some other stuff that's gone on that's going to lead to another wrinkle, because Ball's wife is PO'd about the coat, and she's gone off to Miami. And he's like, fine, go to Miami. I don't give a crap. But now the house is like kind of empty because his son's gone too. He goes, tells the butler, Graves, yeah, pack a bag. I'm going to go to the club. He says, no. You know what? I'm going to go to Louie's hotel. I'm going to stay there tonight and watch everything implode tomorrow. You know, it'll be funny to watch this guy fail up close. Well, look, Louie's kind of annoying, so you kind of get why Ball's being a jerk about it. So they spot Ball now checking in to this hotel. Well, who else is staying in the hotel? Well, frankly, the only other person staying at the hotel is Mary Smith, who is supposedly his mistress. And now Whistling is like, oh, we do have a story here. Goes into the papers. Who's going to see that? Ball's wife, Ginny. But also a lot of other people are going to find out about this thing. And now the hotel is attached to a scandal. And everybody must go. All these people now start flocking to this place. So Ball runs into Mary upstairs as he's being shown to his room. Well, and of course, these two are completely unaware of this whole rumor that's going around. And he's kind of like, oh, it's you again. Well, how's it going? Oh, it's going. Little chat, you know, and here's where she also says something about, you know, food, getting food in this place. Is, oh, and Louie now is like embarrassed. He's, oh, no, what do you want? Order whatever you want, you know, even though he's running low on funds, he can't be embarrassed in front of Ball. So Ball goes off to his room. Mary goes back into her room. And her and John Ball Jr., who's in there, of course, his father doesn't know this, and she doesn't know they're related. They have supper, and they have a really nice, sweet scene where they're talking. It's really beautiful, beautifully lit, well filmed as well. And they're just chatting about this and that and getting a job. And because as far as she knows, they're two sort of lost souls who have found each other, but really more on a friendship basis, except maybe she's thinking maybe it's more than friendship. Maybe this is something better than friendship. Doesn't go into a dirty place here, you filthy, filthy kids. It's, no, it's really sweet. It's a really sweet scene, and it's a nice lull in the sort of action. And it's that lull before things ramp back up. So Wallace Whistling puts a story in the paper. Everybody's seeing it. Everybody's now congregating at this hotel. Ball has not seen it, nor has Mary Smith. And Ginny sees it down in Miami. She's going to be filing for divorce. And so all of a sudden, everybody's coming with things to give her and this and that. And she's getting a little overwhelmed by it. And a guy shows up. This is another scene I loved. Guy shows up and says, I can make you a bunch of money. She goes, okay, make me a bunch of money. And the guy does. $28,000. Now remember, $58,000 was equivalent to about $1.2 million. $28,000 is pretty good. I mean, hell, that's pretty good for nowadays, let alone back then. And, but the scene I love, or the bit I love, she finds out she's made all this money and she's kind of brought to tears, and she says, I'm going to buy a dog. I've always wanted a dog. I love that scene. It reminded me of my daughter, frankly, quite a bit. Sounds like something she would say. But during the course of all these people trying to cozy up to them, this stockbroker has shown up on her doorstep looking for a tip. What's Steele going to do? She goes, well, I'll ask so-and-so. I can't remember how she put it. He thinks it's J.B. Ball Sr. is in the other room having breakfast. Well, I'll ask. She goes, of course, it's his son. He doesn't know. But he says, Steele's going to go down. Yeah, it's kind of a cloudy day. The market always goes, it's going to go down. She goes back, it's going to go down. Guys, oh my God. So he goes back to his office and he lets everybody know Steele's going down. Now, it just so happens that J.B. Ball Sr. is working a deal buying Steele. And he starts buying and everybody else is selling, and the price is going down, and this puts him in tremendous difficulty. And so, and at the same time, he finds out his wife is divorcing him, and he's like, what the? So his wife finally arrives, finds out what's happening. She feels bad for him because she loves him. Of course, at this point, remember, he has no idea that any of this other stuff is going on. He figures she wants to divorce him because of the coat or something like that. He's like, oh, whatever, I'll deal with it later. He doesn't take it seriously. And she goes, I even forgive you for, what you've done. What do you mean what I've done? Okay, it's all starting to fall apart here. And Mary shows up, and ultimately they find out what has happened and why things have happened. So stuff starts getting straightened out, and his son gets an idea and says, look, if a tip from Mary killed the price of Steele, maybe we can do the same thing to bring it back up, which they do. And now JB has cornered the market on Steele, so he's going to be okay. His marriage is okay now that they know what's going on. And obviously, Mary decides to leave. Everything's gone wrong, and her new sort of boyfriend, John, chases after her. Her benefactor wants her back too. These cops go after her. Oh yeah, she had these two giant Saint Bernards in the office that were pretty funny. So they rush after her and they bring her back, and all is forgiven, and it's romantic, and it's a happy ending. And she left the coat upstairs, which J.B. Ball Sr. finds, tosses back off the balcony, lands on top of another girl. and Mary says to John Jr., says, hey, this is where we came in. And we fade to the end. All right, let's take the spoiler alert off. So this is, like I said, this is a movie. I enjoy screwball comedies a lot. I hadn't heard of this one. I just happened to throw it on for the fun of it, and I was really impressed. But here's where I'm going to throw out a little beef here, because I know that the best way to build a channel is to get into feuds, get into fights. This is how it's done. Need that kind of drama. Well, reading the little Wikipedia entry on the movie. I do that to figure out what year it was released, the basics. I don't take much stock in it, but it said at the time, Variety, their reviewer, had said that this was like a watered down version of My Man Godfrey. And I was like, what the hell? So we're going to get into a fight now with a reviewer from Variety in 1937. I don't know if they're still out there, but this is it. I'm going straight at you. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Now, if you have not seen My Man Godfrey, go see it. It's a great film. William Powell, Carole Lombard. The only thing that movie and this movie have in common is that they revolve somewhat around a wealthy family. The family dynamics are completely different. William Powell's character is absolutely nothing like Jean Arthur's character. The tone of the films is completely different. My Man Godfrey is more like a message picture about the homeless who are struggling and about these rich people who just are all playing games and don't care about anything. You know, that is not even remotely what this movie is about. John Jr. is not a bad guy, wants to get a job and earn his own keep. You know, Ginny is, okay, a little bit spoiled maybe as Ball's wife, but deep down loves her husband. John Ball Sr. is a big blustery, you know, but he's a good guy at heart. And you get that right off the bat. I'm like going, there is no way this reviewer watched Easy Living. None. Either they didn't watch Easy Living or they never watched My Man Godfrey. One of the two. Nothing alike. And it is certainly not a watered down version of My Man Godfrey. It's a great little flick in its own right. I would say as a screwball comedy goes, I'd give it a B+. Little pacing issues here and there. Gets a little slow once in a while. Overall, a lot of fun. Good movie, fun characters with a genuinely nice scenes between Milland and Jean Arthur with the romance department. I really liked it. It had a lot of heart. It was a little bit like a Capra film in terms of the heart, but it's sort of like a Capra film if you know, Looney Tune directors got a hold of it, right? It's a great little movie. And My Man Godfrey is also an amazing movie. So highly recommend Easy Living. It's a fun movie. It's pretty quick. I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit, especially if you like movies from the period, screwball comedies. I think you'll enjoy this one. And if you never really watched movies like that or movies from the 1930s, give it a try. It's as good as any to get a start on. And again, it doesn't get real deep or dramatic about things, really. It keeps it pretty light with just a few little sentimental, touching scenes to give it a little bit more heart. So, have you seen Easy Living? If so, did you like it? Did you not like it? Throw it in the comments. If you got any other comments you want to make about screwball comedies, or if you want to get involved in my feud with Variety magazine from 1937, throw it in there. Get all that energy going and build my channel. It'll be great. But yeah, throw some stuff in the comments. I'll answer any questions you have as soon as I get a chance to. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Maybe think about subscribing. Maybe share with a friend who you think might like them. Helps my little channel grow, and I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, God bless everybody. Be kind to one another. Try to have a little bit of fun, and I'll see you again in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.